The Minister of Gender in Rwanda says the women in Rwanda played an important role in the reconstruction of that country. Rwanda experienced a genocide in 1994 where more than 1 million people were massacred.
This APRM on Gender Forum on strengthening the nexus between gender governance and peace building is taking place as a side event of the Global Gender Summit 2019, the first to be organized on our continent, Africa, and that was held in Rwanda. It's again my great pleasure to say that the African continent and the country of Rwanda are very happy to host it and to host you. The creation of APRM as a homegrown solution or assessment mechanism by African heads of state and government is a statement of the commitment to the importance attached to the promotion of good governance in Africa. And I'm pleased to say that, recognize that our country, Rwanda, is one of the countries that started the first reviews when the mechanism started. And on the other side, I wanted to say that Rwanda, under the leadership of His Excellency Paul Kagame, has from the beginning saw that gender has to be a centrality of governance in our peace building and our strides to development. If we wanted to achieve all this, not only this gender equality has to be not only the respect of human rights, but also a strategy for sustainable development. So allow me to share some progress made in Rwanda in terms of women participation in governance and peace building after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, which left the country shattered, and that my friend Benita Diop was talking about. And my point of centrality will go to the role played by women at that particular time, because women took a new role as head of families, households, and engaged in the peace building, but also in building their country, their community, but also their homes. One can imagine or see the women of ours being raised, nurtured in a way that they were not allowed to be the head of its family, with many discrimination against them, including not taking the role of leadership, participation, voice, advisors in the backyard, but not in the podium as I'm standing now. And after the genocide against Tutsi, they had to play a central role of leading their home, their community, but also being with their brothers to rebuild the country. So at that juncture, every institution, every public, private, civil society, they took the leading role and had innovative ways of rebuilding our country. And we could see women now, after genocide, unlike before, playing a vital role in the reconciliation programs, in the Gacaca process. Gacaca was the mechanisms that was set after genocide that dealt with judgment for genocide suspect after the genocide, because the ordinary court couldn't handle these cases, except we would given them 200 years. And they played a vital role in many aspects at all levels and in the decision making. I remember in the civil society, they conduct a campaign, Action pour la Paix. I see some of them sitting here. At the private level, civil society organization, trying to bring them, the lead women from various continents and the countries, to bring them together in the civil society organization, to be able to work together. Some bringing some from the side of the perpetrators, the killers, and others from the survivors because of their widows, their husband killed, even sometimes by the husbands of the other side. That was something that they took, and fortunately, and we recognize it as a country, but also they got an award from United Nations. And that was something that they pushed forward. Before it was difficult, but at the end, they arrived at bringing them at having enjoyable conversation and seeing how they were all victims of this, and they could now come together to build a better Rwanda, not that run by previous male-dominated leadership. That was a great decision from the civil society. And on the side of the government, on the side of, we put in place all the necessary requirements to create an environment where men and women could play the vital role, including gender-sensitive legal, actually starting by our constitution, the legal framework, policy framework, that have been able to actually give women and men a great playground where they can contribute to their country. And the harvest or the result are that we are now having women representation at the high level. We have in the cabinet, in the parliament, 61%, cabinet 52%, judiciary 49%, and we have also at the intermediate level the access to justice 48%, the mediators at the grassroots 48%, and we have women included in all sectors, to mention that are related to the topic of the day. But we are happy to say that all in all, from that period to today, women have changed the position. They have changed the narrative. They are no longer victims and beneficiaries. Now they are in the leadership position. They are leading the country. That's the new woman of Rwanda. In our commitment toward peace and building and governance, we have put in place this national instrument, but also we are part of and parcel to the international commitment and the regional instrument on human rights and women's rights and girls' rights. It is in that framework that we are part of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, where now our commitment arrived to the second generation action plan 2018-2022, and you have developed all the mechanisms to push forward women's participation in peace and security and the fight against sexual and GBV. Rwanda has not only made that stride and effort to gender equality, but we have also linked with our sisters and brothers on the continent, being part of this APRM. It's a peer review, peer mechanism, the peer matters, because it is, as I said, rightly so, by the chairperson of APRM. It's our mechanism. It is for African, made by African, in order to improve the governance on our African continent. And Rwanda have contributed to, as I said, to the first evaluation or review, and we are committed to continue with our brothers and sisters on the continent to push forward, to improve ourselves in order to do better, to make a better Africa, to make our country much more place to live for men and women. In this course, we saw that there are some lessons learned, and it's a journey to share with our brothers and sisters in the continent. First, political will and commitment has to be consistent and critical. As I said, we have a leadership that is, where once it is decided, share it with the community. We are bold on good decision, and we are committed to push forward until things are done. And this is how transformation is happening. The homegrown nature of peace building, governance, and gender equality initiatives have been inspired by Rwanda's unique context and cultural values. Even installing this gacaca and bringing on board women that used to be not to be part of the gacaca courts, and all other considerations who have been tremendous in associating the grassroots, and that brings also the ownership by citizens. The capacity building for gender mainstreaming is critical also, because gender agenda is not women agenda. To have improvement, association, and tremendous result, it's important to work in a gender way, associating men and women. Men are key partners on the path that we've been traveled and traveling. Otherwise, you can have unnecessary resistance if you mishandle the process. Men are the first, foremost key partners if you want to have sustainable peace. The collaboration and the coordination also with all key partners at the national level, regional and international level are also imperative. Because, as I said, I cited the example from the civil society, but at the public institution also, there are other mechanisms that were put in place. And in the parliament, they innovatively thought about women's forum, FFRP, Forum des Femmes Parlementaires. But now, even though the name remains that way, men are also members of the Forum des Femmes Parlementaires. Where they said, we are in this parliament, we are coming from various countries, but we have to work together to build and push forward this country in a right way. So we have to go beyond making laws, oversight of the government action activities, but we have to build the synergy and go beyond this, build the kind of cementing our relationships in order to be one and push forward our agenda. Beyond and above belonging to various political parties. And that is a unique solution also that they came up with. At the government level, and we have some mechanism called Unity Club. And this one is at the beginning thought by wives. At that time it was majority wives, but it is meant to be ministers at that time, female ministers and wives of male ministers or members of cabinet. At that time, they said, we are also coming from various horizons, but we are in the governing seat now, we have to push forward this country. And then they decided to bring together their soft power at that time, and saying, as we are going to partner as wives and spouses of eminent personalities in the cabinet, we're also going to associate women, female ministers in the cabinet. At that time, there were not many. And to see how using our soft power bring like kind of cohesion among us, and then make impact toward the relationships of our spouses who are in the cabinet. They started in a very difficult condition, one can imagine, because that government of unit had inside even people who yesterday were on the front fighting one against another. But that thought of women, spouses, majority spouses of people in the cabinet, the initiative of building peace softly and bringing on board their husband, at that time majority husband in the cabinet, that brought this kind of soft power. And at this juncture, when I am talking, this Unity Club now is made by not only the spouses of the member of the cabinet, but is made by all members of the cabinet and their spouse now. So that cohesion was built, but the first four was actually coming from our First Lady today, who was at that time the wife or the Vice President at that time. But women's power, in a way that is subtle, has brought this country toward peace building in a way that is innovative. Coming back to our security organs, we are happy to say that the period that I was trying to describe after the genocide, we are far from that. At that time, we had the men and men lacking of peace, and now we are happy to see that Rwanda is contributing to peacekeeping where there is a lack of peace. And particularly for women in uniform, during the genocide and immediately after, women was the most affected because of gender-specific problems. And now we are happy to report that we have female peacekeepers in our continent and outside of our continent. Congratulations to our sisters who are the leadership of these people on the ground. I wish to conclude saying that, yes, we have made tremendous efforts. Commendable results are there, but we have some challenges also based on some cultural norms and patriarchal attitude. But together we can change the situation, seeing where we are coming from and where we are now. The important thing is to see what and how to fix the remaining challenges. I understand that today there is a study made actually on this gender governance and peace building and strengthening the nexus, and which is going to show us where to put more effort in order to have this gender in the midst of the peace, the governance and peace building, insisting from the the prevention of war and all related problems. So I think that you have the opportunity to have some findings, and I wish that you could use positively these findings in our next endeavors toward gender equality as the centrality of our sustainable peace and governance. As I conclude, let me again recognize the effort made by our government by putting in place the mechanisms to address women's and girls' challenges. Also, let me reiterate the durable solution in addressing the root causes of conflicts, and it triggers further the mechanism that will have an impact to men and women of our great continent.